Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl and welcome to the Sewing Room channel. I have designed 12 flower applique patterns. I will demonstrate how to draw and stitch these applique patterns into a quilt as you go. In this series there will be 6 tutorials with 2 flower designs in each one. The flower designs are very whimsical folk art and are very easy for you to draw. In some of the patterns, I will be using templates by June Taylor, or you can draw your own templates. For many of the flowers, all you need is a ruler of any type that you have. To make the flowers, I suggest that you use scrap fabric or purchase fat quarters. You will need Pellon fusible web and make sure it's 2-sided. You'll also need tearaway stabilizer or use thin paper. I purchased my paper from Home Depot, or you can get it from Lowe's. It comes in large rolls. You'll find it in the paint department. For all other supplies that you'll need, you'll find a detailed list below your YouTube screen in the description section. Just scroll down, hit on Show More or the down arrow, and you will see all of the supplies listed there. Okay, let's get started. You will need 12 10-inch squares of your background fabric, and this is a suggested layout on how to cut it. You want to keep it folded with your selvage edges together. Make sure this edge is straight, and you're going to move your ruler over every 10 inches and do a cut. So you'll wind up with 3 strips. Then take each of those strips. Here's your selvage edges. Cut those edges off, move over 10 inches and cut, and move over one more time and make your final cut. For the fabric that's for the very back of the quilt as you go, you will need 12 11.5 inches square. So you're going to refold your fabric to where the selvage edges are at each end of your block and it's folded. You will cut this edge straight, move over 11.5 inches. You'll have 3 strips again. Then you will take those and cut them into 11.5 inch squares. In each package of your fusible web, there are 5 sheets that are 9 by 12 inches. In there, once you start looking at the paper, you'll see that it has blue grid lines on one side and then plain paper on the back. And in between the 2 layers of paper is a very thin layer of glue. This is the side that you draw on. These are 1-inch squares. So for this first block, I'm using a June Taylor template that is 5 inches in diameter. So if you don't have these templates, and by the way, you can buy them at Joann Fabrics and Crafts, look for a jar in your kitchen that has a large lid on it that's close to this size. Then on your blue grid line side, you're going to lay it down and you're going to draw around the circle. And then you're going to go over about 3.5 inches from the center. So you're going to go out a little ways from each side of center, and it's about 3 inches apart. Put a little dot here and there. And then you're going to go down 2.5 inches from the very top of the circle. Put another little dot. Then you're going to connect the dots. You're going to draw a line this way and then this way. And you're not going to cut on this side. This is just empty space right here. Then you're going to also need to draw a 1-inch square for the inside of the flower, and just use your grid lines and draw on that. When you go to cut it out of your fusible web sheets, make sure you cut about 1/4 inch on the outside of your drawn lines. So now your 2 pieces should look like this. And before we start doing anything on the fabric, you want to turn this over, both pieces, to the back, and you're going to take just a straight pin like this, and you're going to score the paper on the back. In other words, you're going to put a little tear in it and score it like that on both pieces. Then bend it until a piece comes up, and as you lift the paper off, make sure that the glue, it's very tacky right on that side, is not coming off with it. And do the same thing on your other piece. This is the fabric that I'm using. I'm using this for the large circle and this for the little square. You want to turn it to where the back side, the not so pretty side, is sticking up. Now this yellow fabric looks the same on each side. So I'm going to take my 1-inch square and I'm going to place it on my fabric and then finger press it down. And then the little circle, place it on the back side of the fabric and then finger press it down. Now to cut it out, you can either use your scissors and you're going to cut on your drawn lines, or if you have a small rotary cutter, you can also use that. So now your pieces should look like this, but now we need to remove the other side of the paper and put it on your background fabric. Now if your background fabric is two-sided, in other words, one side looks different from the other, just make sure that the best side is facing up, the prettiest side. I'm just using white, pretty much looks the same on both sides. So again, you want to take a straight pin and score the fabric on each side. I'm going to do that on both pieces. And you want to bend it and then remove the paper off of the back. Now place it down. Now when you're doing this, you want to leave at least 1 1/4 inches from the raw edge of all sides of your square. I'm kind of placing the flower off center, but it's a little too high up here. So you can still lift it and replace it again until you get it exactly where you want it. That looks pretty good, but I'm not going to press it down just yet. Now I want to put this square in there, but I kind of want it to, the edges to just overlap ever so slightly, not much, just a little bit. Let me get this in there a little better. Okay, and then place it over. Now, if there is a little bit of space of a white background fabric coming in between these two, don't worry about it, because your stitches your applique stitches around the fabric is going to cover all that up. Once you have it the way you like it, then finger press it down. Now we're going to fuse it onto the background fabric. In other words, so that it can't be lifted up. If you're using a different brand than what I'm using, a fusible web, then by all means, please read your package instructions for fusing. For the Pellon, you just need to take a cloth, and I just use plain cloth, and I spray it down real good because it needs to be damp. Then hold your iron on top for anywhere between 12 and 15 seconds. Then lift it and let this dry for about 2 to 3 minutes. I'm now going to draw a stem on the flower, and I'm going to give you some suggestions on your stem design. You can draw just a straight line. So if you're not real good at drawing, a straight line is fine. And you can just put a couple of little lines out for your little leaves if you want. You don't have to do anything fancy. Or you can draw a curved line and then just draw some really basic leaf pattern. Remember, this is folk art, so it doesn't have to be perfect. That's what's so much fun about this. Or if you want your leaves to look a little more lifelike, you can draw a line down the center. So I drew just a very simple curve and a couple of large leaves. They don't have to be the same size, they can be different sizes. And I used a fabric marker. You can also use a pencil, but if you use a pencil, make your lines really light because it might show through the stitch line. I'm now going to go over your applique stitches. Now before you do your applique stitches, you want to make sure you put either your tearaway stabilizer or your thin paper underneath your block. I'm going to use a satin stitch in all of my blocks, but you can use other applique stitches. So look at your machine, your user manual, and it will show you other suggested applique stitches that you can do. For my satin stitch, on many of the flowers, I'm going to use 3 different sizes. It'll depend on which part of the flower I'm doing. But for a narrow stitch, it's 2.0 on the width and 0.6 on your length for all of the different sizes. So for the medium one, I'm doing a 4.0 width, and for the large one, I'm doing a 6.0 width. Remember, all of them are set at about 0.6. Test the stitch out on your machine first on some scrap fabric, because if there's too much space in between your stitches, then change the length to a shorter length. Here is the stem and the leaves. I used the wide satin stitch for the stem, and I used the narrow for the leaves. Around the 2 sections of the flower bloom here, I'm going to use the medium. I'm going to do this first and then this one. After you're done doing all of your stitching, then go ahead and just tear your stabilizer or your paper off. This is regular polyester thread, and I use this on a lot of my applique blocks. This is embroidery thread. It's very shiny, and by all means you can use this if you like. It is more expensive, so this is a more cost-effective way of going. Just make sure you're using the proper needle to go with your embroidery thread. Also, when I'm using or doing my stitches, I prefer to use an open toe presser foot because I can see exactly where I'm stitching. I just keep the very center of the foot right here, right over the lines that I have drawn or the edge of the fabric. For detailed instructions on how to do your satin stitching around your fabric and your leaves, I have a beginner's video that will show you how to do those stitches, and that link will be listed below your YouTube screen in the description section, and it's beginners flower appliques. Here is my fabric for the very back of my Quilt As You Go. I'm placing that down, then my cotton batting, and then my block itself. Your cotton batting, remember, is cut the same size as your flower block. You want to make sure you center it on top of your fabric for the back. You want at least a little inch, it's close to an inch that you'll have. Then you want to place pins to hold all your layers together, and you're going to do a really basic quilting stitch or top stitching. And I suggest you just loosely go out around your flower block and do a very basic top stitch. If you're more experienced with quilting stitching, by all means you can do a very elaborate design. For this next one, you just need a ruler and a pencil. You're going to draw a 4 by 4 inch square, and then go down 2 inches and put a little dot right there in the middle. And then you're going to connect the lines. So you're going to draw from here to up to the top corner, and the same on this side. Then down here in your 2 corners, on the little 1 inch square there, you're going to draw a line from here to there, and then go over and do the same thing. You're also going to draw a 1 inch square. Then you're going to cut around it, and you're going to leave this open, and you're going to cut this off. And remember, you leave about 1/4 of an inch of your fusible web out past your drawn lines. When you're done, your pieces should look like this. Remove the paper, the white paper, off of the back, the plain paper, and place it on the back side of your fabric pieces. Then go ahead and cut around your drawn lines. You can place your flower bulb anywhere you like on your background fabric, and then again draw any stem and leaf pattern that you like, and again put paper behind your background fabric. Remember, before you do your satin stitch, you want to always fuse the fabric on and then do your satin stitches. The stitching order was the same as the first one. I did the stem and leaves, then I did this little pointed piece up here, and then I went around the edge. And the size of the different stitches were exactly the same: large, narrow, and medium. Then layer your fabrics and do a basic quilting stitch or top stitch to hold all of the layers together. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you decide to do this Quilt As You Go series. Remember, there'll be 2 blocks in each tutorial, a total of 6 tutorials. All of the supplies in detail are listed below your YouTube screen, how much fabric you need to buy for the back and the front of this quilt. Also the link, remember, if you need help with that satin stitch, that will be listed below also. Now don't forget to follow me on Instagram and check out my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing. If you like the Sewing Room channel, one of the best ways to show your support is to subscribe by clicking on that red subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. And make sure you click on the bell so you receive notifications for all my new videos. I'm Cheryl. This is Manny. See you next time.